Welcome back, everyone. I'm Philip here from BlackBull Markets. I hope you all had a good week. Another market update for you guys. Obviously, NFP is coming towards the end of the week, so we will have a look at some of the USD pairs and how the NFP could potentially affect it. Now, generally speaking, when this news event does happen, we tend to see it push the market to extremities. For example, we'll push it to a resistance, and the market will kind of consolidate there and sit there for the following week for the market to reject that or, react on that zone. We also have a request for GBPUSD from someone here on YouTube, so I will be covering that pair as well, and a couple of other pairs I want to look at for you guys as we lead on to the end of this week or middle of the week, let's put it that way. But before we do dive into this video, guys, make sure to click that like button. Also subscribe to the channel if you're interested and do enjoy our videos, and if you're, like I said, interested in learning more about Forex. Now, without further ado, let's have a quick look and see what we have here on the chart. So first one, obviously, I'll be covering here for you guys will be GBPUSD. This is the 4-hourly time frame. Now, we have been sort of sitting above that 1.32900 mark zone, big psychological level, right? So we see the market again failed to break this area. We can see there it is right over there. So if we draw kind of a line, we can see market failed to break it just recently, and that we had that bit of a pop to the downside, big wick, and completely rejected it, pushed to the upside, right? So we could be struggling to break it. Now, if we have a look here on our higher term time frames, so daily term time frame, we can see, like I said, we broke past a bit of a support here, right? So the market has kind of broke past this. We can now potentially use that zone or that support area to push further lower and start looking at pushing to these highs where we could look for rejections for the market to again then turn around and push further high. We need to keep in mind this daily term time frame, everything is still pointing to the downside, so generally it is a fair bit harder to catch these tops and bottoms. Especially if you're trading tops and bottoms, it's a little bit, your accuracy will tend to drop a little bit more. So generally speaking, if you're focusing on tops and bottoms, we tend to see about a 30% accuracy in trading, right? So if we, in saying that, we just need to know, all we need to do is we need to adjust our risk-reward ratio. So the lower your accuracy is, obviously the higher your risk-reward ratio has to be, vice versa, right? So if you have a higher accuracy, you can just adjust your risk-reward ratio to be actually a little bit lower. But obviously, like I said, for swing traders, we tend to have a much higher R&R. We risk much less and get a much bigger reward because we are looking for those longer runs. Now, for example, if we get stopped out here a couple of times, we're not going to mind because obviously overall targets will probably be up here. So we're looking for big moves for the upside, and that's kind of what we'll be looking for here for GBPUSD. If we do get a break to the downside, we'll be starting to look for pop. Rejection and pop further higher, or if we crumble down to the low side, break this support, we can then start to look for drops. So let's have a quick look at potential targets. If we do move to the downside, I'll probably just pop it on the 4-hourly, the weekly term time frame we're going to have to use. Now we can see, right, this support that we reached over here, that kind of low that we could be approaching, that has been sitting here on this major weekly support. We're currently just hovering on it, so we need to be aware of the zone. This could be, we do know this has been a downtrend on our daily term time frame, but we also have an uptrend on the weekly term time frame. So this could be a new higher low, for example, and we could start to see the initial first move in the trend reversal, right? Now we do have to keep all the things in mind. We ideally, if we want to look on this weekly term time frame, we're going to have to be looking for weekly rejections and things like that. So personally, if we want to start trading this to the upside on a lower term time frame, for example, a 4-hourly time frame scale, ideally, we want to be using these resistance zones and resistance / support zones. So we want to see the market. We do know this could be, like I said, our potential higher low. So really what we're going to do to confirm our lower term time frame bias, we want to see the market kind of break above and then reject on this area. And then we can start to confirm, okay, well, market has now potentially moved for the high. It doesn't necessarily have to do this. We can just have a move breaking above, rejecting, and we can say, okay, well, market's now, broken past the resistance, using that as support. We just need to keep these things in mind that the market could still get stuck on. But, generally speaking, because we have this longer term bias, the upside market could be potentially starting, the new uptrend or continuing with its higher term time frame uptrend. We could use this to push further high. Now, obviously, targets, or we need to start looking at this areas. If the market starts to push in here and reject quite strongly, we can, look at either closing, because we can always get re-entries. If the market pushes above here and starts pushing further high, we can start putting stop losses to break even, securing some profit, and then obviously we can start looking at higher term time frame targets if you guys are interested in letting your trades run even further. Okay, so let's go to the outlook, the two outlooks for GBPUSD. Obviously, as traders, we always need to look at both sides of the spectrum. We need to see what happens if the market goes up and what happens if the market goes down. We can't have a complete set bias. I can't say no one can tell me, and I can't say, no professional trader can say the market or the buyers will 100% come in here and push this market up, or no one can say the sellers will 100% come in here and push it down. We just don't know. All we have to do is we have to react and respond on what the market gives us, right? That's why it can be a bit difficult to trade NFP since we are on the topic. NFP is a difficult one because it's just a quick random reaction, right? We can't say if NFP is going to be good, or if NFP is good, this is going to happen, and we can't really do that. We just have to react on what the market gives us. Okay, so I want to cover now quickly. I want to cover gold for you guys as well. Gold, we have been focusing on this one this entire week. I believe even last week we were looking at gold. Stuck in this consolidation zone, it finally broke out to the upside. This is the hourly term time frame. So if you guys do remember, if you have watched our previous video, we were stuck right over here. We had this resistance and we had this support. This consolidation zone was where we were stuck, and we were looking for breaks above. We eventually had a nice break above. Now for me, again, I love retests. Generally speaking, I don't trade breakouts because 80% of the time, in my experience, the market comes to retest, and that's exactly what we had. We had a retest of an internal support resistance area. We had a very beautiful, this is that rejection. We had a very beautiful engulfing candle close above 1, 2 candles, big push, and then we had this big, quick liquidity, deep, grab of the market, grabbing all the liquidity to push it further higher. Nice close above, there was our entry, and then we had, obviously we're looking for targets coming up above here, so this could still be a longer term target we could look for, because gold is rejecting now. This was a very small term time frame to get rid of that. This was a very small term time frame rejection, so we could still very easily see gold come back down using NFP to perhaps push down here, right? And then we can look for next week. We can start perhaps looking for moves to the upside if that's what we're going to get. Then we can start looking for these targets up above 1973, 1974-ish. Right, now this rejection right over here, why did this happen? Look to the left. We can see consolidation zones, wick rejections. We had some wick touches over here, so that's kind of what happened. Like I said, this is a much smaller retest. It's not something that we generally see. Retest, we really want to see something that looks more fluid and more motion. What we kind of saw here was something more along the lines of so generally speaking, now I want to wait for what we can potentially see now is this rejection as we come towards the end of the week. NFP could potentially push back down with some wicks touching inside these internal zones, and then we can look for the market to continue further higher up next week. Right, that's the bullish view for gold, if that's what happens. Right now, let's again have a look at the other side of the spectrum. What could happen if the market breaks down below our support? Right, so there's our support. We have 1921.50 is what I've got here on our charts. If gold does happen to push down fairly early on the week and then uses NFP to blast into the zone, we could then start to see some rejections as the market times to shut, and then we can actually use next week to potentially look to be moving or trading inside the zone. Now, personally speaking, this for me is not an area I want to be in. So if the market does push back down, it's not anything I'm going to be looking for. I'm not going to be looking for any moves until we can break below this 1887 mark zone. But then obviously, like I said, you guys, if you have watched our previous video, there are some resistances coming up, or support, coming up. So if we do break below this area, that's what we're going to be looking for targets, stop losses, entries, whatever, right? So these are the two options. If the market does break below, the support stays in here. For me, no trade zone until we break below 1887. If the market does reject on here, next week we could potentially be looking at trades above 1920. Right, very nice moves up further high. We've got initial potential first target we could look for, and then that overall target on that weekly resistance up there on the 1974-ish mark zone. All right. Quickly, another pair I want to look at. I want to look at EURUSD as well. Obviously, NFP is coming up. EURUSD. Out 4-hourly time frame, we can see first thing we see is a nice big downtrend. Market is moving to the downside. So let's pop it over to the daily time frame. We can see we're sitting on a support. We just broke below it. Now we've seen this happen quite a lot where the market, especially in the EURUSD, the market kind of just pushes below the support, and then it's going to use that to reject as a resistance and drop further lower. So that's kind of what we could be potentially looking at. So before we look at any sort of entries, do we have enough room for the market to give us nice moves? Yes, it does seem like we do. We have got some very clean candles here to the left. So I mean, I would say on the weekly time frame, moving back down to the 1.1 major psychological level, I would say just above that 1.1. So 1.1 EURUSD would be a good one to look at, because it's not that completely that psychological number. Sometimes the market doesn't quite reach those areas. Okay, so now we've got a good target. We can say, you know, there's enough space for the market to move to the downside. Pop it over to the 4-hourly time frame, and let's quickly zoom it out, because I do want to put I just do want to put a structure right over here for us. Okay, so that's kind of what we're looking. There's that structure, and we can zoom back in again and then start to look for potential moves. Now, obviously, right, NFP is coming up. This is a USD pair. So depending on what happens, this market could push back up again and reject in here for next week to push further higher. Or, you know, NFP could completely blast it down, be a bit frustrating, and then wick back up again, and we can sit on top of here for a while, and then we have a lot of uncertainty because we have wicks, right? So right now, it's not really, you know, for me, personally, I would like to see this drop a further bit lower. You know, this is kind of what I'll be looking for, is obviously that rejection on the zone. So if NFP doesn't, you know, affect too much, we could look for sells in the long run all the way back down to that 1.100, I think 0060 was the target sort of we'll be looking for. Would be a nice one to look for. To the downside. To the upside, if we do get rejected in here, obviously we've got some internal support / resistance zones that I'll be playing out. Okay, we've got these areas. We have this massive gap that acts as a big consolidation zone. We can really see this entire area right over here was just consolidation, right? This is a zone we don't really want to be trading in personally. But other than that, you know, we could still, you know, we can never say if we get an entry, we could still get any some rejections that push further higher. Target 1.2970 would be a good zone. Once we break above, obviously, again, we're reaching into consolidation zones, so this is not really an area we want to be looking at executing any trades. Could be an area if the market does dip into, we could start looking at securing some profits. And above that, you know, we can then start looking at other things like that, or if we do reject on here, you know, move to the downside. So that's kind of it for the EURUSD. Last one I do want to look at as well is this US30. Now, I've covered, you know, obviously I've covered oil quite a bit, gold quite a bit, because of what's happening in the world right now. We do know oil is getting a bit more scarce. So I have covered, you know, that one in 2 videos. So let's, I'm not going to cover that today. I just want to cover this US30 for the last one. This is the US30, the 4-hourly time frame. I'm already starting to see some patterns, but let's have a quick look on the daily time frame to get an idea of where we are sitting. Weekly, big uptrend. We can see we've rejected this support right over here. Nice rejection. Probably move that down a little bit more actually. Right, so roughly about there. Okay, now let's have a look at our daily. We can see the market has given us a big rejection of that zone. Popping over to the 4-hourly, this might confirm the entry. We can see very nice. So we could start looking at moves going to the upside, right? We have this sort of nice sort of structure coming to the downside. We have this kind of head and shoulder structure playing out here. This could be a very nice trade. Looking for moves to the upside. Obviously, we have got some internal structures coming up again. You know, obviously, every single time we trade back into the market, we need to keep in mind we have zones that are constantly popping up in the market that could cause issues for us and where the market could get stuck on, right? So if we can get a move further higher, if we can stay above this 33017 mark zone, we could, you know, see moves further higher. If not, you know, if we do use internal support / resistance areas to reject, push back down, you know, we have to just react on what the market gives us. We're not here to predict the future. We're here to react on what the market provides us. So if we don't get a run, if we do, if the market does move past a zone we, you know, don't really want it to move past, we have to change our view, change our bias, and then start to look for other sort of moves. So if it does break past, you know, we could look for rejection of the zone and push further lower. All right. So a couple of pairs we looked at, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. Like I said, if you did, leave us a thumbs up. Also, comment down below if you have any questions or if there's any other pairs you want us to cover. Throughout this week, we'll be doing a special one specifically for NFP, covering USD pairs as we get closer and closer towards the time. But, guys, thanks so much for watching. From everyone here at BlackBull Markets, stay tuned. Trade safe.